Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Badriah binti AMIR and I am going to present the subnetting calculation for my final assessment. So, the question that I am given for subnetting calculations is I am provided with an IP address block which is 172.16.00.20. I am asked to subdivide this block into following subnets or subblocks. The following subblocks are subnet A 500 hosts, subnet B 200 hosts, subnet C 100 hosts, and D 50 hosts. I am asked for subnet mask, which is prefix length, network address, broadcast address, and usable IP range, which I am asked for first and last usable of IP addresses. Before I go into the question, I am going to convert the given IP address to binary. So, which method that I'm going to use is, the method that I'm going to use is 2 power of n method. In this method, the 2 power of n represent 1 bits. 1 byte equals to 1 bits, which is why the 2 power of n is 2 power of 7. The power of n equals to 0 or 1. I'm going to show you how to do it. To convert the following IP address into binary is we have to convert it one by one. First, I'm going to convert 172 first into binary. So, following the 2 power of n method, I'm going to need to find the sum to get 172. If you can see here, is that I chose 128 plus 32 plus 8 plus 4, which I can get 172. Each of the number that I use to get the sum of 172, I'm going to put 1 below it. The number that I don't use, I'm going to fill the rest with zeros. And so, I get the binary number for 172. I'm going to convert 16 into binary. As you can see here, I do not need to find the sum to get 16 because 16 is already there. So, I'm going to put 1, the number that represents 16. And then the rest I will put zeros. And so I get the binary for 16. And then next I'm going to convert zeros into binary. Since I do not need to find the sum to get zeros, I'm going to fill everything with zeros. Thus, this is the binary for 172.16.00. And then next, moving on to the question. Subnet A, 500 hosts. First, I'm going to find the subnet mask for 500 hosts first. So, how do I find the subnet mask? I'm going to use the same method that I used to get decimal to binary. I'm going to find the number that is the closest to the 500 hosts. And then I will choose the 2 power of n that represents 512. After that, I'm going to use the formula of 2 power of 32 minus n. I'm going to use the number that represents 512, which is 2 power of 9. And then, looking at the formula, 32 minus 9, which I can get 23. From this on, I can get the subnet mask, which is 23, and then the number of addresses, which is 8388608. For network address, I'm going to use the given IP address with the subnet mask I got earlier. From network address, I can find the broadcast address. From the network address, I'm going to convert it from binary that we got earlier, and then I'm going to count each of the bits until on the 23rd because the IP address subnet mask is 23. After the 23rd, I'm going to fill the rest with 1. And thus I got broadcast address, which I convert it to decimal, which is 172.16.1 and 255, 23 subnet mask. Okay, so to find the usable IP range, first I'm going to find the first usable. To find the first usable, I'm going to use the IP address from network address and then convert it to binary. After that, I'm going to plus 1. Thus, I got first usable, which is 172.16.0 and 1. After first usable, I'm going to find the last usable, which I'm going to use the broadcast address that I got earlier, which is 172.16.1 and 255, and convert it to binary. After that, I'm going to minus it with 1. Thus, I got last usable 172.16.1 254. After finding the first usable and last usable, I got the usable IP range, which is 172.16.0.1 to 172.16.1 254. That is for 500 hosts. Next, we will move on to 200 hosts. First, I'm going to find the subnet mask for 200 hosts. I'm going to use the same method that I used from 500 hosts, which I'm going to find the closest to the 200, which is 256. That is 2 power of 8. As you can see, I used the formula and then I minus it with 32 and then I get 24. Thus, I got subnet mask, which is 24 and 16777.216. This is the number of addresses. And then the next is network address. I cannot use the IP address that is given because I already used it for 500 hosts. So I'm going to use the broadcast address from subnet 500 hosts and then convert it to binary. After I convert it to binary, I'm going to plus it with 1. And then I get the new network address, which is 172.16.20. Subnet mask 24. After I get the network address, I'm going to use the network address to get the broadcast address and convert it to binary. Using the method that I use from 500 hosts, I'm going to count each of the bits until the 24th because the subnet mask is 24. After the 24th, I'm going to fill the rest with 1 and then convert it to decimal. I can get the broadcast address 172.16.2 and 255. Subnet mask 24. After we get the network address and broadcast address, we can find the usable IP range. First, I'm going to find the first usable. And so, I'm going to use the network address that I got from earlier and convert it to binary. And then next, I'm going to plus it with 1. And then I got it. And then I'm going to convert it to decimal, which I can get 172.16.2 and 1. After I find the first usable, I'm going to find the last usable. I'm going to use the broadcast address, which is 172.16.2 255 and convert it to binary. And then I'm going to minus it with 1 from the back. And then convert it to decimal, which I can get 172.16.2 254. After that, I get the usable IP range, which it ranges from 172.16.2.1 to 172.16.2.254. And then we will move on to 100 hosts, which is the subnet C. I'm going to use the same method that I used from subnet 500 and 200 and find the closest one to the 100, which as you can see here, the closest is 128. And then I can get 2 power of 7. From this, I can get the subnet mask, which is 25, which is from I minus it with 32. And then I can get the number of addresses, which is 33554432 addresses. And then next, I'm going to find the network address for 100 hosts. I'm going to find the new network address for this host because the last network address I cannot use. So I'm going to use the broadcast address from subnet 200 hosts, which is 172.16.2.255. And then I'm going to convert it to binary. After that, I'm going to plus it with 1 from the back. And then I can get the new network address in binary. I'm going to convert it to decimal so we can see better, which is 172.16, 3, and 0. Subnet mask 25. And then next is the broadcast address. So I'm going to use the network address that I got earlier and use the binary number for it. And from the binary number, I'm going to count each of the bits until the 25 because the subnet mask is 25. And so I'm going to fill the rest with 1. And I'm going to convert it to decimal to see it better. So we can get the new broadcast address, which is 172.16.3.127. Subnet mask 25. So we can get the usable IP range. To find the first usable, we're going to use the network address from earlier. I'm going to plus it with 1. So we got the binary for first usable, and I'm going to convert it to decimal, which is I can get 172.16.3.1. For the last usable, I'm going to use the broadcast address from earlier, which is 172.16.3.127. And using the binary number, I'm going to minus it with 1. And then I'm going to convert it to decimal, which I can get 172.16.3.126. As you can see, we can get the usable IP range, which it ranges from 172.16.3.1 to 172.16.3.126. And lastly, for the last subnet, which is 50 hosts, I'm going to find the subnet mask first, which is we have 50 hosts, so I'm going to find the closest to the 50 hosts, which I can get here 64. And then from 64, we can get 2 power of 6. And then using the formula, I'm going to minus it with 32, so I can get 26, which is 2 power of 26. From here, we can see the subnet mask is 26, and from the formula, we can get the number of addresses, which is 671.088.64 addresses. So, we are going to find the new network address for this host, which we are going to use the broadcast address from 100 hosts and convert it to binary. From here, I'm going to plus it with 1, and so I convert it to decimal, which I can get network address, which is 172.16.3.128. Subnet mask 26. And then the next is broadcast address, which is here I'm going to use the network address I got from earlier and convert it to binary. After that, I'm going to count each of the bits until the 26, and then fill the rest with 1. Just like here, you can see I fill the rest with 1 and then convert it to decimal, and so I get broadcast address, which is 172.16.3.191. After we find the network and broadcast address, we are going to find the usable IP range. So, to find the first usable, we are going to use the network address from earlier, which is 172.16.3.128, and convert it to binary. Using the binary number of the IP address, I'm going to plus it with 1. And so, I convert it to decimal, which is, I can get 172.16.3.129. After that, I'm going to find the last usable for the range. To find the last usable, I'm going to use the broadcast address from earlier, which is 172.16.3.191, and convert it to binary. And using the binary of the IP address, I'm going to minus it with 1. And so, here we can get it, and I convert it to decimal. So here, we get 172.16.3.190. And so, we can get the usable IP range for 50 hosts, which is 172.16.3.129 to 172.16.3.190.